Welcome to Unapologetically Black Male, where we're surviving the stigmas, standards, and systems. I want to give a shout out to co-host EJ Stewart and our the person who kind of organized this, Jennifer Pope from J Pope and Associates. Once again, Unapologetically Black Male is an interview series to highlight African American men and how they survive the stigmas, standards, and systems to get to where they are right now. Now we have a special guest on today, Brother Anthony Johnson, and I'm going to give him an opportunity to share a little bit about himself, give us a little background history, and then we'll continue on with a few more questions. So, Brother Anthony, can you go ahead and introduce yourself? Give us a little bit of background history about yourself.
Okay. How much time I got?
You good? You good? Take your time. Take your time.
I'll be brief though, man. I guess I'm a proud Baltimorean, born and raised in the city of Baltimore City. Academically, I went to City's High Schools, City College in Baltimore City.
Boo.
The castle on the hill, as we like to call it. But also, I attended University of Maryland for undergraduate. Attended Morgan State University for my MBA as well. And then had some additional certificates. I have a certificate from Georgetown in social media management and some other things. So that's just like my academic, I guess, say foundation. But just professionally, I've been mostly working in sports marketing, as well as being my own entrepreneur. Currently have two businesses, I would say. One is an accessory business for men, but also most people recognize me more as being a licensed MBA and FIBA sports agent with the agency Renaissance Sports Group.
Okay. So can you tell us a little bit like what got you into kind of wanting to be in to kind of sports agency, sports marketing? Like where did that passion or where did that desire come from?
I mean, I feel like everybody feel like they're passionate about sports to some degree. But I played sports, man. I played it. I did karate. I did football. Even did a little bit of basketball, like in middle school at one point. So I've always been kind of entrenched into the sports world. Played it in high school. Had some minor interest to play it collegiately. Didn't play collegiately. Focused on my academics. But point being, I knew even back then, one, I wasn't going to the NFL. But two, I wanted to work in an industry where I could make just as much money potentially as the NFL guys. Mm-hmm. So that's how kind of that thing came into fruition. I just at an early age, I knew I wanted to be a sports agent. Even going into college, or a sports agent or a sports executive. But I had been working in the industry, so that made me more intentional about working in the industry. So I interned with sports agents. I interned with universities I attended and so on, to really try to get some experience, kind of position me a little bit more moving forward in the industry. And I think it paid some dividends, I would say. But to answer that question, long story short, man, I've been from a player. I've been invested or involved in the sports, but also I knew at a young age that I wanted to be in the industry from the professional side.
That's interesting. You were a sports marketing major, right? In undergrad.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked.
There's a story behind that, but I'm gonna let you get to your question.
Oh no, definitely get it to me. But I ask about it because, being a college athlete, I was one of the few guys that didn't take that major, and we always, the other guys that did always faced a lot of criticism from the rest of the world because all the coaches are in there and you just gonna get passed. So you're going to College Park and you're in this major, you're focused, and you decided that this is what you want to do. Did you face some of those similar stigmas and stereotypes despite not being an athlete in college?
So this is a great question. It's kind of a cool segue. So my story is unique in that when I was at the University of Maryland, they did not have a sports management program, but I majored in it. But they had a program called the Individual Studies Program. So through the Individual Studies Program, they gave you the autonomy to create your own major, essentially. So with that being said, in creating my own major, what I did was I looked at a lot of different focuses on my future career paths. So it wasn't just sports courses that I took, because I knew where I was trying to go. So I took a lot of business courses. I took communication courses like negotiation, public speaking, nonverbal communication, all things that were kind of going to position me to be a little bit more equipped going forward as I transition into the industry. So yes, I took like the sports marketing, the history of sports and those things, but I also took business and communication classes. And that was cool because I was the only person to graduate from Maryland with that degree.
Wow.
So but they also made you work a lot for it. So I had to, unlike other students, I had to present my curriculum, get it approved. I had to find a faculty advisor. I had to write a thesis, like a 30-page thesis, in order, just to get this for undergrad. This is not like I'm getting a doctorate, nothing like that. But one, it made me even more serious about the industry, and it gave me more context on, like, one, a lot of the racial disparities in the industry, because that was part of what my thesis was about. So it like, okay, if I'm going to be serious about this, I need to lock in now. And I think it made me more well versed.
You speak to the racial disparities, like, and then having to kind of do like pretty much did a master's for your undergrad, honestly. But speaking to those racial disparities, what did you find in, like, your research that, when it comes to, like, what you were studying?
Man, it was, and I think the numbers have gotten better since then. I graduated 2010. Okay. Hopefully those numbers have gotten better.
Hopefully.
But it was one big thing I used as a really big source. It was called the Race and Gender Report Card. And that report card really looked at, like, the disparities of managerial positions, executives, coaches, and so on across the leagues. Not just racial, but also the gender conformities of the leagues as well. And it really gave a lot of insight to what leagues are diverse and really doing it exceptionally well, but also what leagues are not diverse and are really failing at it. But also, being a person of color in that space, it also opened my eyes. Well, yes, we're dominating certain leagues, i.e. football and basketball, but we aren't really in as many of these managerial roles. Now, I will say this: basketball, especially, I'm biased because I'm an agent for the NBA, right? But basketball has probably been that the NBA and the WNBA has been, like, the top performing league across all of the leagues as it pertains to race and gender breakdowns for the most part in the recent years, and it was kind of the case back then as well. So the going back to your question, it is my thesis really shed light on the disparities, but also I feel like it kind of motivated me more. You know what I'm saying? Because I've seen those disparities, and I felt like, well, what was the why behind it? Why is it that they aren't putting us in, as people of color, in these managerial roles, and what could be the impact if we had more people that look like us that are managing these guys in this industry that we're dominating, and annually we're creating thousandaires to millionaires every year. So that wasn't by coincidence.
And what, of any of that, did you, not only from the research, but personally maybe experience in having to break ground or even get your foot in the door as you were able to get those internships? Did you feel any of that glass ceiling, that, any of that being pushed down on you?
Yeah, man. But I think really college is, like, really what you make it, and you got to leverage the resources that you had. So I was fortunate enough to, I'm a member of Omega Psi Phi. I was fortunate enough to have a frat brother who was a sports agent, who gave me an opportunity to intern with him in his sports agency. But I also was involved with different organizations that kind of, we know that there are going to be disparities across across all industries, but I was looking into entities that could kind of help propel me. So at that point, it was the National Association of Black Sports Professionals. I'm not sure if they're in existence now, but I was involved with them. I was involved with the Sports Business Society, and really trying to get in those rooms so that we know what the glass ceilings are going to be, but not really trying to focus on them, but really leverage, because there are people in sports, especially in that DC, Maryland region, that are doing some things, and they really want to connect with people that look like them. So I'm just trying to really build off of those relationships. But I will say, man, there's been a lot of positions that I put in for at that point, because I told you I want to be an agent or work for a major corporation. Put in for all of the cliches, the Under Armours and all those guys of the world, the Nikes and so on. I didn't get the positions, and that's fine. But I think so. Hopefully, I'll be working with them as an agent, right? But interesting story, man. I even emailed Kevin Plank directly one day, trying to ask him about a position, because he was the University of Maryland guy, and I seen a lot of my peers that were getting positions, and I'm like, you're hiring these people. I see I meet these prerequisites. Why aren't you hiring me? And he actually responded, that was pretty enticing for me within itself. They responded with my resume and so on. So even that gave me a greater respect for him. That, oh, well, he's actually checking his inbox, but he's also trying to be intentional to support people, even at the bottom of the total poll, even though they didn't hire me. That still made me like him a little bit.
That's what's up. Yeah. I got a couple different questions.
Oh, man.
It's funny. I was just talking to someone the other day about sports agents and how things are changing in the sports agencies. How do you see the sports agent world in the future, and what are some things that you doing to kind of prepare for any changes or anything that you see coming down the pipe?
One, I'm gonna say this, right? Agents have a bad stigma, but the irony of it is everybody paints the agent as the bad guy or girl, but they really are trying to be the agents themselves. And that can extend to coaches, managers, parents, everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to say the agent's the bad person, especially the NCAA, right? They want to make the agent the bad person, but really they're just trying to do our job or fill that void indirectly. But they just use us as the way to build the trust of the athletes by painting us. You have to have a villain, so the agents are naturally the villains, right? Now when you ask me about like what's on the forefront or the horizon as far as the industry itself. One, obviously, it's been a lot of press and publicity about like name, image, and likeness, and these student athletes being able to make money off of their image and likeness. So July 1, I think like as it stands, like 6 or 7 states are already going to be enacting legal legislation unless federal mandates come down and supersedes those state laws. But at the moment, it's already here. It's on the horizon. And I think that also offers a lot of opportunity for agents, but also just observing again, everybody's acting as if they're trying to help the student athletes or they're equipped to help the student athletes, but trying to box the agents out. And I just think it's kind of hypocritical. Like we've been doing this for years, representing these student athletes, but every university saying, "Oh, well, we're building a program." You don't have to build a program. You can just let the agents do their job. But because it's more so about control when it comes to these things. And they mask his other thing just to build the trust, which really makes it interesting and perplexing. But I'm excited beyond that, man, because I think it gives you opportunity to access as an agent if you can be innovative in your approach. So one of my 9 to 5 jobs, I did social media management and marketing. So that gave me some applicable experience. I've done those things as an entrepreneur for my businesses. So I think that makes me sometimes more equipped than some of the other people that are pitching. But it's a matter of just building a trust so people can hear your story and connect with you. Because a lot of times, if you don't come from that big super agency, they don't give you a time of day, and sometimes it's even our own people. And that's fine, but you got to understand it and keep trucking.
Cool. Now with those the kind of recent things with the name and likenesses, how does that affect the way you will work as a agent, like, and trying to reach out to those people, or do you help in that process, or do they have to manage it on their own? Like, is that
so once the law goes into effect, at least in those states, you can represent these guys or ladies. Because women actually can be better influencers, because essentially they're influencers to some degree. How the law is kind of written, they're treated as influencers to some degree. Because they aren't paid to play. I know a lot of people thinking that they aren't paid to play; they just kind of pay for their popularity or their likeness. But to answer your question, you can represent them at the states that have the laws into effect already.
Okay.
Now it's trickling down as far as the states and their legislation. Right now, a lot of the southern states, kind of SEC country, I would say, are the states that are really pushing that July 1 date. But other states are coming in a little bit more on the back end. I think Arizona's July the 23rd, and Maryland is, I don't know what we're doing. We're like 2022 or 2023 or something like that. So we're way behind the 8 ball. Hopefully they'll push that up in the process if that federal legislation doesn't come down across the board. I think one thing that again is that is interesting that we already have to do as NFL or NBA or agents, we have to get registered with the states anyway. Okay. So if I'm an agent, I'm governed by the NBPA. It's like their players association. Those are the ones that we do business with. But if we're recruiting players in various states, we should be a registered agent in those states. And all of those states come with fees. Just to let you know, Maryland is one of the highest. I think we pay $1,000 or something a year, or every 2 years, something along those lines. So that you can,
and that's so you can be an agent.
So you can be an agent in their state. That's what you can operate and function as an agent in their state. So that's going to be also interesting because you don't necessarily have to be an agent going forward to represent these student athletes. You can be a marketing agent. You necessarily have to be an NBA agent or licensed with the union. So I'm curious to see how they're going to treat those guys or girls as it pertains to like the upcoming NIL legislation. Because I think one thing that you get with an agent is, that it's a heightened degree of, validity, because they've been vetted. We passed tests, we pay fees, we have liability, you know what I'm saying, as far as we can get sued. And some of these things are criminal offenses. So we're held to a different standard. So I'm curious to see how they're going to treat the people who are deemed as marketing agents, what degree of standard and fees and so on are they going to be applied to them.
And yeah, like me with that. Tell me if I'm wrong, but traditionally agents used to seemingly always be former attorneys. And if that is true, what has that been like navigating that world, not necessarily being an attorney, but being versed in this game? Have you had to deal with that element of, because attorneys, and I hope not to offend anybody, attorneys know everything 90% of the time. So have you ever had to deal with that element or aspect of the game?
Well, dealing with attorneys, yes. Because I'm not an attorney. And that was something I really struggled with, that I wanted to go MBA route or get my JD and kind of go to law school. That was something I really struggled with. And I picked a MBA over JD. Nothing against, because I think you don't necessarily have to have MBA. You just have to have a master's degree depending on the league to get certified. And I think the NFL has the highest requirement, and it's a master's degree. But the way the CBAs are written, it's a lot of legal jargon. Mm-hmm. So if you have that law background, like, man, those books is 500-600 pages, and those words are not small. You know what I'm saying? So you're already fatigued by looking through it, but also sometimes you have to decode some of the verbiage, because it's all written in legal talk. So that's definitely added value, I will say. But I also feel like the industry is changing. Some of these things are becoming more standardized, as far as like the pay scales and those type of things. So the lawyers they're still valued, because there's a lot of contingencies that can be written in the contract, and you definitely want to have a lawyer on staff that you work with to kind of look over these things. Mm-hmm. But you can go either, or point blank, you can go either route. I went the MBA route because I felt like I could hire an attorney to do some of those things. An attorney who might not have the same business acumen as me might feel like they could hire marketing or social media or someone who's going to help them with business development. So it just depends on what you're trying to hire in that capacity. But going back to the root of your question, most attorneys are really rooted. Most agents were rooted in the legal field because of that CBA and so on and so on. And because, that's the personality is fitting for the agent, the Jerry Maguires of the world. Showed me the money. And I actually met that guy who's the movie's based off. It was a really cool dude, Lee Steinberg. But I think you can kind of wear either hat, to say the least. But I necessarily don't have to deal with lawyers except for doing business with me. So if they're looking over my contract, or I'm outsourcing them to, create a contract, especially with this name, image, and likeness stuff, I'm about to meet with an attorney to kind of create some type of standardized contract, because it's a little bit different, and it's going to vary from state to state depending on where you're working with this athlete. So that's a prime example of what we were talking about, in which I'm working with an attorney, but it's not like they know everything, because I'm informed too. You just got this. Tell me what the billable hours is and what it costs to get the job done. That's how.
Got you.
Absolutely. What advice would you give a young, and we can keep it across gender, but specifically we talking to a successful Black male. What advice would you give a young Black male that 10 years from now could be you in 2010?
Great question, man. One, I'm gonna tell them, start now. Don't wait 10 years. The beauty of the agent world is consistently evolving. If you can really ideate ways to get into the industry early or get a client, one, you'll get an internship wherever you want if you got the right client, right? Like, so that's what I'm gonna say. The easiest way to get an internship in this industry is probably to have the right athlete that one of these agents want to work with. That'll get you in the door immediately. But also, I would say, lastly, man, just to be as informed as possible about like what's trending, social media. Really, grasp it by the horns and really get some control of it, because I think it's the future of especially name, image, and likeness. Another thing I would say, man, to someone who's trying to get into this space again, look what's trending and where the opportunities are. I think a lot of times we try to get in these super crowded spaces, but in spaces like industries like esports and gaming, I think it's an immense amount of opportunity in esports and gaming because it's such a growing, evolving business and industry. And it's going to be a lot of parallels or overlap. So if you eventually want to get into basketball or football or one of the, the premier leagues, you could probably transition or at least have some quality experience that enables you to take this and validate you going to one of these teams or entities or agencies. So I guess to summarize a lot of my advice, I would just say start now. Tap into social media, look into what opportunities are, but also look into esports. That would be something else I would say as it pertains to just like the industry itself.
Cool. That's helpful information. Who are some key individuals in your life that kind of like poured into you when you were younger as you were growing up, like in college? Like, are there some like key individuals that kind of stand out that kind of help you mature and get you to where you are now?
I didn't have like a mentor enough. I feel like I had like flash mentors in my life.
Gotcha.
I think that was through coaching. Actually, I will say this. I did have one guy so it's only 2 Black NBA sports agents in the city, in the city of Baltimore. Let me just say.
Okay.
And one of the other guys, Frank was I feel like again a quality flash mentor for me as far as just he was one of the first real agents that I seen that was from my city that was actually doing this career field. So I would say him, but also, man, I just think just having just like the right tribe. Obviously, my family was key. My mom, but yeah, man, unfortunately, I don't have like a super mentor to help me down, and I think sometimes that makes me better. But I just think I just took all of my experiences and just kind of turned them into a melting pot of who I am today. I think. Which each aspect of the journey I just took from it. From University of Maryland was my first time really being away from Baltimore and seeing how the world, even though it's down the road, is very different from Baltimore. You know what I'm saying? Like, and seeing how the world was bigger than our city and what it looked like. But then I joined the fraternity and I met a lot of people in that space who provide a lot of guidance and insights. But it was all like different parts of just kind of like being a sponge and picking from people throughout my journey and process. But also always having my goal in mind was to be the agent over in some sports corporation.
Okay. Now, was that a difficult transition when you went from Baltimore to College Park?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that was it. I'll let you answer.
I'm gonna say no because I was always a great student.
Okay.
Only thing, yeah, it was enlightening. It was insightful. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
To see how people were so much more friendlier outside of the city of Baltimore. It was like everybody says hi here. Everybody walks past you and they ain't looking at you. You see if you're looking back, like it was different. You get what I'm saying? Like that was the more eye-opening thing. But outside of that, man, I also it really I thought I studied hard, but I also saying like, okay, this is what real studying looked like. Because school was never. I was always a good student, so. That was probably the hardest point that I had to like really kind of commit even more to my education. But outside of that, I just think it made me better.
Okay.
But it definitely was a transition. Definitely was a transition.
Got you. So would you, as far as, just kind of like
for you guys?
Hard for me? I mean, for me, when I went to a school in the middle of nowhere, so leaving from Baltimore, my school is called Waynesburg College. It's an hour south of Pittsburgh and 20 minutes like north of Morgantown. It's what they do for fun was cow tipping.
Oh wow!
So as you can imagine, but. For me, I had wanted to get out of Baltimore. Just coming from a predominantly school, I went to the best high school in Dunbar. In Baltimore, in Dunbar Senior High School. But coming from that environment and just kind of, no, I really did. Coming from that environment, was I wanted to get out. I wanted something new. I wanted to change the environment. I didn't want to go to Morgan, even though Morgan's right up the street. But I felt like I needed a change, and and it was definitely a culture shock. You know, I wanted to leave within the first. I think the first semester I was ready to get out of there, but I wanted to stick it through and kind of get some of the experiences that I got. And if I didn't, I wouldn't have been able to do a couple mission trips, going to Haiti, Australia. I had a scholarship to community service, so that played a big part of me staying there. So for me, it was a learning experience. I'll say that. And I definitely, it helped me grow and helped me learn like that, understand what it meant to be a real minority, because I was a minority there. I was the one that they want, I was a semi-good student, but I also didn't get in trouble. So they was like, oh, we can put him on the brochure, do little things like that. They wanted to highlight you, all that good stuff. So, just kind of learn the game when it comes to colleges and things like that. So for me, it was an enlightening experience. So, but I learned from it.
Yeah, I definitely was a minority in Maryland, but Maryland was diverse. It was super diverse. So I will say that it was a pretty diverse university.
Did you pledge Omega down there at College Park and undergrad?
Yep.
Okay, that's what's up.
Great experience. One of the best decisions I feel like I made, man.
I mean, he could have made a better one.
He definitely could have made a better one, but we're gonna leave that alone.
He could have made a better one.
It's really only one. I'm just saying. But I'm gonna let y'all have y'all moment.
Listen, Alpha come before Omega. That's all I got to say.
That's what they tell y'all.
Hey, that's what it is.
No, I mean, when you look at the alphabet, that's what it say. I'm just going by what the alphabet say.
What alphabet?
The Greek alphabet.
Oh, okay.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up. So tell us some things, man, that you got going on with the sports group. Things that you could share, without giving the competition too much sauce.
Yeah, man, that's fair. Ain't nothing too secretive, man. I am who I am, and I'm not a dream seller. So, but I have two guys that we're working with right now. One, Justin Jennifer, who played in University of Cincinnati, also played overseas in Slovenia, and then Isaiah Lewis, he played in Uruguay before COVID. So trying to get those guys placed. Working on some other stuff actually for a big tournament that's coming about in the TBT, which is like the big tournament that comes on ESPN. And the team wins $1 million. So hopefully I'm kind of working some things on the back end with that as well. But also gearing up for name, image, and likeness. Trying to figure out where I need to get registered for the guys that I'm trying to recruit for business, because again, you got to get registered in these states. And if they don't come down, they don't come down to everybody. They definitely come down on the agents, especially the ones of color. So I got to cross my T's and dot my I's, man. And just try to change one life, one relationship at a time, but also change the industry and create this Renaissance movement. Y'all see me plugging myself, man.
Absolutely. Now, how could they get? I mean, for those, if say for instance, you got some athletes that might be watching this, or some parents, or somebody who kind of want to get in contact with, what's the best way to reach out to you?
So me personally, I mean, I'm on social media. Well, you could keep it simple. Instagram, entrepreneur. Just like entrepreneur, but the first letter is an A.
Okay.
But as far as like our agency is just REN Sports Group on all the platforms. So again, REN Sports Group. But I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. Not a Snapchat guy. I created a TikTok, but I only did one post. So that might not be the best way to get me. But I'm on most of the social platforms, the same with our agency. And we have a website, and you contact us for them. But definitely, if you got a cousin, little brother, niece, or whomever, you feel like it's a dog and they can hoop and you want to send them our way, we represent guys for the NBA, but also overseas basketball. So please do.
Appreciate that. I do have a quick now. How different is the overseas market compared to the NBA? It seems like a lot more players have a lot more opportunities overseas. I mean, the NBA, of course, is like it's kind of exclusive.
To simplify it, NBA is America. Overseas is the rest of the world, and they're different leagues. Like in Italy, it might not just be one. Like we just have the NBA, and we don't really treat the other stuff the other leagues to that, but there are different levels in some of these countries. So it might be multiple leagues in these countries. Now, granted, there's levels to it, just like there's levels to the NBA and some of the semi-pro and so on. But it's very different. And some of these leagues you can make a lot of money. Most of them is going to be in Europe. And some of them like in China, stuff like that, you can get a pretty good payday too. But it's very different. One, because especially I've only been certified for FIBA for a year, so it's been an interesting year because of COVID. So a lot of the leagues aren't opening, or their schedules are different than what they would have been. Some people talking about like the lower leagues, some players talking about they ain't got paid. It can get real messy, you know what I'm saying, depending on the caliber of league. So you also have to understand your value and the caliber of player to determine where you're going to place them. But it's a whole different world, a whole different ball game. Obviously, the NBA is like top tier. So they're much more organized in how they communicate. And if you have an issue, you can fly to a state. If you got an issue with somebody in Turkey, that's an expensive bill. Try to go resolve. You know what I'm saying? So keep that in mind. A lot of people work with guys overseas, like agents might have partners in other countries to kind of do some collaborative stuff for sure.
Oh, that's what's up. That's what's up. Thank you again for departing that wealth of knowledge, especially with the whole sports agency, and just kind of understand that dynamic. So definitely appreciate you for sharing that knowledge and sharing that wisdom. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you
again. I think our young men got to know that we can go pro in the business of sports beyond just being an athlete. There's a lot of other different career avenues. You can be an agent, you can be a coach, you can be an analyst, you can be a statistician, you can be a capologist. There's so many other ways that you can operate and function in this industry and make some pretty good money doing it. I think that's also what we have to push on our kids. Yes, we want our kids to be the LeBron James, but you might want your kid to be the Anthony Johnson or the Rich Paul or the Stephen A. Smiths and so on. And I think we got to start kind of pushing those narratives as well.
Absolutely. Definitely.
And salute you, man. And all of the work, is just hearing what you had to do to just get that done at Maryland. I mean, that's inspiring, man. And that's dope. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah. Man, listen, they owe you some credit money, man. They owe you something.
It definitely was a 5-year track.
Hey, listen, you got it done though. That's all that matters.
Yes, indeed.
You finished. That's that's all that matters. So,
the
once again,
degree is a done degree.
Absolutely. They say C's get degrees too, right?
Hey, I agree.
So once again, we want to thank everyone for joining us on this weekly podcast of Unapologetically Black Male, where we're surviving the stigmas, standards, and systems. Thank you again, Brother Anthony Johnson, for coming on. We want to thank co-host EJ Stewart. Also thank the boss lady, Jay Pope from Jay Pope and Associates. Once again, you can follow us on social media. You may continue to look out for the content that we put out each and every week, and we look forward to connecting with you next week. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Thank y'all, man. Y'all all right.